Hey, this is Rob, and you're listening to the Hidden Destination podcast. This is, I believe, episode 8, and I am recording this in Fargo, North Dakota. I'm at Bab's Coffee House, which is a cool little coffee house in downtown Fargo. Not much of a downtown here, but it's a cool, vibrant little college town. I'm gonna be sipping on some coffee here as I record this, but yeah, super cool city. I found out why it was so hard to find a place to stay this weekend, and that's because it is move-in weekend for the university. There's a couple universities here, and at NDSU, and I think Concordia, and everything was sold out. Hotels, campgrounds, quite literally everything. And I do have a funny hotel story to tell, but I learned about move-in weekend through Mike, who I'm going to talk about later in the podcast. It was a fun encounter. But yeah, yesterday so today is August 25th, 2024, and I'm going to recap yesterday's ride. So I got a super late start. Looks like that seems to be the theme. Staying up too late, sleeping in, late start. But either way, it was a beautiful day yesterday, and I left Swan Lake campground, which I talked about in episode 7. Just an incredible place. So another thanks again to Tom and all the other folks who helped, accommodate me and make that a special memory. So it was great. But yeah, I rode the rest of the rail trail from Swan Lake to Fergus Falls. Fergus Falls was a pretty cool little town. Cut through Fergus Falls and then hit some really, things just flattened out after that. And I hit the most spectacular tailwinds of this entire trip. The roads were flat and smooth. The tailwind, I was traveling northwest, and the winds were direct. So I was cutting at a 45-degree angle towards North Dakota through Minnesota, and the wind was at 45 degrees at my back. It was so strong. And my trajectory all the way into Fargo was just that, consistently riding at that 45-degree angle, and it was fast. It was so fast. So I cruised in my biggest gear ratio for pretty much the entire 60 miles, which I've never done before. I think I'm going to pay for that today a little bit, which I'm not looking forward to. It won't be a headwind per se, but it's going to be a pretty brutal crosswind depending on how open it is on my route. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, it was a cool route. Passed through Barnesville. They had their Potato Days festival, which was pretty lively. So I rode through that. And then I kept going through the town of Sabin, where I saw a guy on the roadway from quite a distance. Obviously, it's so flat, and a bunch of sunflowers, as Jack Kreckle pointed out. One of his memories from North Dakota were all the sunflowers, and I did see quite a handful of sunflowers. It was pretty cool. But just outside of Sabin, I rolled up on a guy fixing a flat on the side of the road, And I asked him if he needed a hand. He said he was all set. But we got to chatting. He seemed like a super cool guy. I was just telling him, obviously he was, asking about my trip, and sort of the loaded panniers are a good conversation starter. And told him about my trip, told him about that it was super difficult to find a place to stay. No camping, all the campgrounds were sold out, all the hotels were sold out. And he was like, well, you're more than welcome to stay at my place if you want. So I was like, oh, that's super generous. I was like, I didn't manage to find a cheap motel, and there's no refund policy, so appreciate it. But either way, I'll hit. Let's swap numbers, and maybe we could meet up for a beer or something in town. There's tons of cool breweries in Fargo, and for some reason that triggered something in my mind to be like, let me just call to verify to make sure that this hotel booking went through, because I don't know why, I just had a weird gut intuition that something could have been wrong. So I ended up stopping in Sabin. I was making just incredible time, so I was like, I'm gonna hang out here, grab some lunch. It was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and might as well give a good service. I was like, I might as well give the hotel a call just to confirm that they got my hotels.com reservation, because during the booking process it was kind of just spotty. But yeah, either way, I just had a weird feeling about it. So I give the hotel a call. Well, first of all, there's no through the confirmation email through hotels.com, there was no phone number. So okay, that's weird. So I go on Google and find the phone number, and the phone's disconnected. It's the Grand Inn Motel, which is just terrible reviews. It's, it was the cheapest thing I could find. But there's another Grand Inn Motel. So I call that one, and I speak to the woman at the front desk, and she can't find my booking. And I told her I made the reservation at the whatever street location, and she was like, oh, that's been closed for a while. That hotel doesn't exist. So I was like, oh, well, that's definitely not good. So I was like, okay, well, so you don't have any indication that I'm staying at at your motel? She said no. I was like, and she's like, we don't have any rooms available. So I was like, okay, well, that's not good. So I end up having to call hotels.com, and well, first I end up on the chat service, which was an absolute nightmare. And they said the customer service agent on the chat service it's like, I'm going to escalate this and we'll have a resolution for you via email in a few days. I was like, okay, well, that doesn't help. So I was very persistent about speaking to the customer service representative. Meanwhile, I'm texting Mike on the side being like, hey man, I might actually need to crash at your place. And so my persistence pays off, and I speak with the customer service agent, and they're like, okay, we'll figure this out, and we'll book. Because I was like, I have no place to stay tonight, and I'm just outside town, so I need a place. You guys got to fix this. And so the customer service agent was super nice. I was like, okay, don't worry about it. And I was also like, all the places are sold out, and everything that's available is insanely expensive, so y'all need to cover the cost. So long story short, I'm get back to riding, making my way towards Fargo on hold for, sporadically for about a half hour, 45 minutes or so, while the customer service agent is trying to figure this all out. And she confirms the hotel doesn't exist, and was able to find me a big time upgrade, which was nice, and they covered the cost of that. So ended up staying in a much nicer hotel, actually a lot closer to town, which was fantastic. So I let Mike know, I was like, hey man, looks like things got resolved. Are you still interested in going to grab a beer? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. He's like, why don't I just swing by the hotel and pick you up? So I was like, cool, that's great. I was on the second floor. I had to like lug all my gear upstairs, which was, not something you want to repeat multiple times. I feel like when I'm going into hotels with my bike, I'm like in a covert ops situation where I'm trying not to be detected. So I'm like looking out for security camera, because a lot of times they'll be like, you can't bring your bike in the room. And I'm like, no, I'm bringing my bike. This is a $3,000 touring bike. I'm not leaving this outside. So it is always a stressful dash to get inside. I don't. There's too many stories about people getting their touring bikes lifted, so I don't let this out of my sight. Right now, it's currently sitting next to me in the coffee house. I'll bring it into grocery stores, put it up by customer service. Like, not something I'm gonna mess around with. So Mike swings by, picks me up in his Mustang convertible, and we cruise on over with the top down to Fargo Brewing, and it was great. The Fargo Brewery, I think it's Fargo Brewing Company, was so cool. It was exactly sort of what I envisioned for like a smaller city sort of brewery. Actually, the surrounding area, this town actually reminds me a lot of Fort Collins. So the brewery had a lot of like Fort Collins vibes to it. It's a really cool spot. In fact, it would be cool to spend a couple more days here, but the town's so busy with the move-in weekend. So I will be making my way out of here. And I am going into the hinterland, back into the hinterland of Minnesota. And there is nothing out there. This will be tomorrow's episode, but I was up till 2:30 in the morning eating bowls of cereal, trying to figure out a place to stay tonight. And it was tomorrow night. It was actually tonight there because it was past midnight. But I only managed to squeak out something that will hopefully work out for tonight. But there's everybody I talk to on the phone, all like the camp. Well, there's no camping. That's another story. But all of the like resorts and cabins and everything, they're like, yeah, there's nothing out here. Like in their thick Minnesota accent. So just a little fun side fact. This is the furthest point west that I'll be hitting right now on the tour. So technically making my way back east in a sense to complete the Grand Loop. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we'll see how today goes. Definitely venturing into a bit of the unknown, but either way, what was I saying? Oh yes, Fargo Brewing. Really cool conversations with Mike. He's an awesome guy. He really got me stoked about doing RAGBRAI, and I think that's something I want to do next year, possibly if time allows, or at least some point. Like RAGBRAI sounds like such an awesome party, and to do like another cross-country tour from west to east and then intersect RAGBRAI on the way would be just dynamite. So I don't know, maybe that'll be a thing. But shout out to Mike Smith for being awesome and also taking me to Walmart to resupply with some stuff. Loaded up at Walmart with some necessary items. Always easier to do with a car, so huge thanks to you, man. And it was I did share the podcast with him, and it was awesome getting to know him. I also noticed too my Instagrams like being super weird about like duplicating and omitting certain pictures. So a lot of the pictures that I do want to be posting aren't being posted properly, which is a bit frustrating. But the selfie of Mike and I will be this episode's photo. But yeah, so that was just sort of a testament to, I think, a couple things I wanted to hit on there. That definitely one of the things that has stood out about this tour has been like persistence, like being persistent and listening to your intuition. So the combination of persistence and intuition is a super powerful combination of sort of those subjective sense structures that this tour has definitely helped me tap into. So I think the persistence piece gets strengthened while you put your, because you mentally have to be persistent every day, especially when you're, a little bit over a month in, putting in some, sizable miles, all things considered, with the weight of the bike. And, your body hurts. Like, your legs are fatigued, especially when you're breaking down, setting up camp in the morning. Like, you're a little sore, a little wonky. So that sort of persistence in mind. But then I think being exposed to the real world and like troubleshooting all the time and just interfacing with the fundamentals of reality helps also build up that intuition as well. So intuition and persistence were the theme of yesterday. And so that was just a little side topic. As previously promised, I did want to hit on what I am referring to and will hereon refer to as Zyn Zyn Zalabin time. So I've sort of been hinting, maybe obnoxiously, and I guess this is more of like a Gen X or whatever the younger generation is phenomenon. Like, they use this substance frequently, but I did want to briefly hit on the constructive, like how I've incorporated the use of nicotine into the bike tour. For better or for worse, I have found the moderate and regulated use of Zyn pouches to be helpful from sort of a safety perspective for bike touring. So I had a situation in Ohio where it was like so hot out, and I was at this gas station and I was talking to this guy, this like 500-pound man smoking a cigarette in a motorized wheelchair outside this gas station and he was talking about turtle soup. And that's just a fun little side fact. But for some reason, I had noticed that they were selling Zyn pouches, and I was like, I've always been kind of curious about that, because I do, enjoy the sensations of nicotine, but I don't like the delivery methods. Obviously, smoking cigarettes is terrible. It's disgusting. And, having a safe delivery method omits a significant amount of the health risks that can come along with the use of nicotine. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna give it a shot. So I went in, I bought like a little 3 milligram packet of like Spearmint, which is delicious, and gave it a shot. So I was my sort of idea was to wait until like typically towards the end of the ride, when I start getting a little like fatigued, a little too late to have a cup of coffee, but especially if I'm on the roads where I just want to be sharp. That sort of was the original use case. And sort of the intention behind it to like help power you through that last 20-30 miles of the day, to really help sharpen the focus, because it's a stimulant. Nicotine is a stimulant, similar to caffeine. They both stimulate the central nervous system, and they increase alertness, improve concentration, elevate mood. Similar to caffeine, they both lead to physical dependency. There's no difference there. Nicotine's definitely a bit more addictive, and obviously regular use can result in intolerance and withdrawal symptoms similar to caffeine. But I guess just sort of the main differences, nicotine's an alkaloid, similar to the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, whereas caffeine is similar to the neurotransmitter sorry, I'm drawing a blank, adenosine. So caffeine blocks adenosine receptors, which prevents the onset of drowsiness, and increases neurotransmitters like dopamine, norepinephrine, and so does nicotine. Nicotine mimics acetylcholine and binds to the nicotinic acetylcholine receptor in the brain, which leads to the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine. So it does create that pleasure reward sense. And when you couple that with music towards the end of the day, you definitely, that last 20 miles or so definitely feels pretty good. So that's sort of how I've been using it. I limit myself to 2 at the most 3 milligram pouches every hour. So that's sort of my, what would you say? That is my safety guard. I don't go over 2. And again, it is sort of to help with that alertness and that focus. And also, like, it does enhance, I typically hold off for listening to music until the end of the day, because music also has a dopaminergic effect. So, after I eat, I give myself a couple hours, and then, so you're kind of like slowly regulating and getting hits of dopamine along the end of the route. And then, once I get to camp, that's also the anticipatory effect of that is dopaminergic, and then eating dinner, and then by that time I'm just passing out. So yeah, that is the constructive use of nicotine during the course of bicycle touring, and that was a bit longer than expected. We're at almost 25 minutes here, so I will end it. But yeah, I hope folks are enjoying the podcast. I know I've disseminated this to a lot of people. Any feedback, obviously there's the comment section, but there's also, I'm sure everybody listening has direct contact with me via text. So if you have any suggestions or things you want to hear about, or whatever else, just shoot me a text. Any feedback, all feedback, and any things you can think of that you want to hear about to make the podcast more enjoyable, I am super interested. So let me know. That'd be cool. Yeah, from Fargo, North Dakota. Until next time, ta-ta.